Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Kiaza. Kiaza said in a teasing tone. I am the guardian of the inner grotto. All of you should be fighting me together in order to gain the treasures that I possess. But, looking at all of you, none of you seem to have the strength to do that. Cadmus and the rest of the kobolds shuddered. All of them worship dragons, so there was simply no way for them to attack Kiaza, as it would be considered a sin on their part to even think of it. Also, even if they did, the dragon could easily kill them with a snort. Cadmus would probably die after a slap or two if Kiaza really intended to kill him. Would you believe us if we said that we are just passing through here? Lux asked with a hopeful tone. Kiaza chuckled and nodded its head. Indeed, all of you were just doing your best to escape Indus from the outer grotto. It had been hundreds of years since anyone has entered the dungeon, so I'm guessing that the city of Eshful had been discovered, right? Lux nodded his head in acknowledgement. So the name of the ancient city is Eshful. Kiaza gazed at his guests as a bestial smile appeared on its draconic face. Since you came all the way here, I can't let you go empty-handed, Kiaza said. How about we play a game? A game? Lux inquired. What kind of game, Lord Kiaza? Lord Kiaza. Not bad. I like you, half-elf. Thank you, sir. Kiaza chuckled, but in spite of his amiable attitude, Lux could still sense a foreboding feeling that made him raise his guard. Let's play a siege battle, Kiaza replied. However, we need to split your team into two. All the kobolds, including you, the draconic one, are on one team. As for you, half-elf, you will be fighting alone, without that baby slime on your head. Kiaza didn't bother to reply as its body shone brilliantly, momentarily blinding everyone. When the light receded, they found themselves staring at what seemed to be a table made up of crystals. On top of the table was a forest, where three paths could be seen, one on top, one at the center, and one at the bottom. Let me explain the rules, Kiaza said. At regular intervals, crystal soldiers will spawn in the two strongholds that are located in the corners of the map. One side belongs to the kobolds, while the other belongs to you, half-elf. As Kiaza explained, several miniature soldiers moved along the paths and headed towards the center of the map where several watchtowers were standing. Both sides fought after they ran into each other, but since their forces were equal, no one got the upper hand. Your goal is to break the crystal that is inside each of the fortresses, Kiaza replied as he pointed at the two crystals inside the two strongholds. The first one to break their opponent's crystal wins the game. However, you can only break it once all the watchtowers are destroyed. Lux pinched the bridge of his nose because no matter how much he looked at the map, it still resembled the game called Dota he played on Earth when he was still alive. There are monsters inside the forest, so if you go there, be prepared to fight them, Kiaza stated. Well then, good luck to both combatants and how may I help you? What's your name? Lux, Lord Kiaza, Lux replied. So, what's the problem? Why are you raising your hand? Aren't I at a great disadvantage in this battle? Kiaza smiled as it nodded its head. Of course, how could I forget that you still haven't reached the strength of a rank 1 monster, while your opponents are all rank 3. And one of them is even rank 5. Very well, how about this? You draconic kobold over there, what is your name? Cadmus respectfully bowed before answering Kiaza's question. My name is Cadmus, Your Excellency. I see. Well then, Cadmus, you are not allowed to fly. If you fly even once, you will be kicked out of the battlefield. Do you understand? Yes, Your Excellency. Very good. I like smart kobolds. The red-headed teenager wanted to curse internally because he thought that Kiaza would at least prevent Cadmus from joining the battle because it was simply too much. Fighting against a rank 5 alpha monster in Dota was like fighting a level 20 hero when you were still level 1. It was a completely unfair matchup, and Lux wanted to protest about it. However, before he could even do that, Kiaza glanced at him with a devilish expression on its draconic face. I hate elves, you know, Kiaza replied. But, since you are a half-elf, I only hate you half as much. Don't worry, if in the off chance that you win, I promise that I will not be stingy with the rewards, so please do your best. Just as Lux was about to argue, he was covered in a dazzling light and teleported to the artificial battlefield that Kiaza created. When Lux opened his eyes, he found himself inside a stronghold. He immediately went to the Fountain of Life and checked the stores to see if there were any items that he could use to fight against the kobolds, who had a great advantage over him. Just as the half-elf expected, there were indeed weapons, armors, and artifacts that could be purchased in order to increase a person's stats, as well as increase their fighting capabilities. There is still some time before the battle starts, Lux thought as he gazed at the giant hourglass, whose sand was still at its halfway point. Lux thought Kiaza didn't explain the mechanics in detail, even about something as important as how to gain gold in this siege battle, and this is probably my only advantage. Lux also looked at the temple near the Fountain of Life and saw his picture, Diablos, Ishtars, as well as Pazuzus. I guess it is safe to say that the four of us are the heroes of our team. Lux mused. I see, so this is why Kiaza decided to make me fight the entire kobold team alone. It must have also seen Aiko's capabilities, so it decided that having her with me was too unbalanced. The half-elf had to agree that his baby slime was way too overpowered if it became one of the heroes that were to join him in battle. The red-headed teenager then opened the matchups and saw Cadmus, one kobold shaman, one kobold mage, as well as one kobold raider on the opponent's side. The rest of the kobolds were treated as ordinary warriors to assist them in battle. The half-elf closed his eyes as he took several deep breaths to calm his senses before opening it again. He then stared at the trickling hourglass as he summoned all of his named creatures as well as skeletons to fight for his side. He was no longer feeling anxious because he knew that even though the kobolds were stronger than him, he was more experienced in the mechanics of the game. Lux was an avid Dota player in his past life. Although he wasn't a professional player, he was someone that had the skills to reach a high rank. I guess it's time to beat up some noobs, Lux said with a devilish smile on his face. That bratty half-elf is no match against us, the eldest kobold mage said with a smirk. Poor child. It seems that His Excellency Kiaza really hated elves. His chances of winning are almost non-existent. I agree, the kobold raider replied. Such a weakling, who is not even a rank 1, thinks he can beat us. How laughable. Without that slime accompanying him, he will have a hard time, the kobold shaman commented. However, we shouldn't be too overconfident. He might win if we let our guards down. Cadmus nodded his head. That's right, do not let your guard down. Although he is at a disadvantage, this is our first time participating in this kind of siege battle. Perhaps we can use this as well if we ever fought against other races. All the kobolds agreed with Cadmus' explanation. They had also seen the shops and understood that the items inside it could be bought by gold. However, they didn't know how to obtain this currency. In the end, they decided that they could still beat the half-elf without the weapons, so they didn't think much about it. It's starting, Cadmus said as he looked at the hourglass that had disappeared from the sky. Several crystal warriors then spawned at the 3 gates that led to the top, middle, and bottom lanes of the map. Let's end this battle quickly. All of us go to the middle. Yes. Lux stood at the middle of the map, and right by his side was Pazuzu. Behind him, several skeleton grand archers stood at the ready. They're here, Lux muttered, and the demonic defender by his side tapped his shield with his mace. Have no fear, Pazuzu is here, Pazuzu declared as he stood in front of Lux. Keep me safe, Pazuzu. Yes, my lord. Cadmus fearlessly charged towards Lux with the intention to kill him. Although the half-elf was standing in the middle of 2 watchtowers, the draconic kobold thought that he could easily kill the half-elf and his minions with 1 dragon breath. However, just as he was about to unleash his strongest attack, Pazuzu pointed his mace at the draconic kobold, which made the latter's body move against his will. What sorcery is this? Cadmus thought as his body lunged towards the demonic fighter, whose shield was firmly planted on the ground. When the draconic kobold came within the watchtower's range, the 2 towers fired blue giant orbs of light that hit Cadmus' body directly. The draconic kobold almost spat blood from how painful the attack was, which made him feel that he had clearly underestimated the damage that the 2 towers could bring. The 2 towers fired in rapid succession, immediately taking a third of Cadmus' health in the span of a few seconds. Naturally, Lux and the skeleton archers weren't being idle, and unleashed their attacks at the draconic kobold, decreasing his health further. When Cadmus was only a few meters away from the demonic defender, an ankle snare trap sprang on his feet, stopping his charge for 3 seconds. This allowed the towers, as well as Lux forces, to take more than half of the draconic kobold's health, making the latter feel regretful for his recklessness. After the duration of the trap ended, Cadmus once again continued his charge, but another trap stopped his advance. This continued 3 more times, making the draconic kobold spit blood due to the injuries he received. When his health was just a trickle away from disappearing completely, Lux appeared in front of him and raised his sword over his head. Double Fury Slash! Lux roared as he used his strongest attack skill against the arrogant draconic kobold, who thought that it could fight him head-on. Less than first blood, greater than. An announcement rang inside the battlefield as Cadmus' body turned into particles of light and returned to the stronghold where he belonged. The half-elf glanced at the respawn timer for the draconic kobold, and snickered when he saw that it would take Cadmus a full minute before he respawned. Being strong also has its downsides, Lux thought as he felt a temporary surge of strength in his body. All of his stats had increased by 10, which was enough for him to step to the apostle rank for the remainder of the siege battle against the kobolds. He also received 500 gold coins after killing Cadmus, which made him very happy. "You bastard, I will kill you." The raider that had been chosen as a champion charged at Lux out of anger. However, the moment the 2 towers on Lux's side hit its body, a quarter of the kobold raider's health disappeared just like that. To Lux's surprise, the kobold ignored his injuries as it raised its saber to continue its charge. "For the nest," the kobold raider shouted as its body was peppered with arrows. Lux chuckled after seeing kobolds' reckless attack. He had already seen the way kobolds fight. They often relied on great numbers in order to overcome their opponents. The other surviving kobold raider also followed its comrade, as the kobold mage and kobold shaman chanted their spells. Lux didn't bat an eye and took out a fist-sized rock from his storage ring and threw it at the kobold raiders, whose life was hanging by a thread. "Power shot!" Lux roared as he imbued the rock with his ranged attack. When the rock smashed against the kobold raider's head, the monster staggered before 2 orbs of light engulfed it completely, turning it into particles of light. Less than double kill, greater than. Before Lux could even celebrate killing another noob, a fireball and a wind blade flew in his direction. Pazuzu raised its shield and tanked the damages of the 2 attacks, decreasing his health by half. All the kobolds were rank 3 monsters, so they were very powerful. However, Lux wasn't afraid because he wasn't fighting alone. Diablo emerged from the forest and pointed at the kobold mage, who had raised a death flag when they were still in the outer grotto. It was at that moment when the kobold mage felt shock as his body ran towards the skeleton rider, who was standing near the 2 towers that had killed 2 of his comrades. "Nuu-oo," the kobold mage shouted as his body was bombarded by arrows, as well as the attacks of the 2 watchtowers. "Yes, Tilda," Lux sneered as he watched Diablo throw a bone spear at the kobold mage's head, killing it completely. Lux could have killed the kobold mage and had a triple kill, but he allowed Diablo to get the last hit in order for the latter to get the gold coins for the kill. After the kobold mage died, Diablo returned to the forest. It was busy killing monsters in the jungle to get gold, as well as increase its rank. Alongside Ishtar, the skeleton hunter sneakily planted traps several meters behind Lux before following Diablo inside the forest. Lux had explicitly told his skeleton rider and skeleton hunter to buy certain items as soon as they acquired the gold for it. Right now, Diablo was headed towards the side of the map where a blue rune had appeared, which increased his damage by 100%. Kiaza took pity on Lux and gave him 500 gold coins before the battle even started. Lux used this to buy a courier animal and upgraded it into a raven that could carry items for him. Soon a screech resounded from the sky as Lux retreated to the back in order to gain the item that he had bought from the shop. Although he had anticipated that the kobolds would all charge to the center of the map to take advantage of their numbers, They greatly underestimated the damage that the two towers beside the path could dish out on their enemies. The kobold mages and the kobold shamans hurriedly retreated after seeing 3 of their comrades die under Lux's forces. They thought that they would be the next target of his minions' taunting spell, forcing them to die a pitiful death, just like their comrades. Lux chuckled when he saw the retreating kobolds. Sorry, but in order to win, I need to bully you newbies, Lux thought as he ordered his skeleton archers to attack his opponent's twin towers. He made sure that before the last crystal soldier and basta were destroyed, his forces would retreat so they wouldn't be attacked by the towers. The first thing that Lux bought were boots that increased his movement speed. His plan was to run away if Cadmus had the intention to attack him. Although the draconic kobold was stronger than him, it would be impossible to catch him if the kobold wasn't wearing any items that increased his movement speed. Kobold's side of the battlefield. Damn it, Cadmus shouted as soon as he respawned in the Fountain of Life. He didn't expect that he would die a dog's death under the half-elf's elaborate tactics. When he respawned, the kobold raider and kobold mage appeared beside him as well. The 3 kobolds glanced at each other and immediately formed a plan. Both of you go to the lower lane and help the crystal soldiers destroy the towers there, Cadmus ordered. I will hold the middle and distract the half-elf. I will also send the rest of our comrades to your location. Make sure to destroy them as fast as possible. Do I make myself clear? Yes, the 2 kobolds replied in unison and immediately headed to the lower lane to help their forces advance. Cadmus watched them go before running down the middle lane to fight against the half-elf who had killed him so easily. You just got lucky, Cadmus growled. He believed that after knowing the half-elf's strategy, he would have an easier time dealing with him. The draconic kobold vowed that he would make Lux pay dearly for the humiliation he suffered in front of his subordinates with a painful death. What he didn't know was that the half-elf was already waiting for him to arrive, so he could farm gold to buy the items he needed in order to teach the kobolds not to underestimate their enemy. Your name is Aiko, right? Kiaza watched the baby slime, who was munching on berries beside him, as they watched the battle unfold. Aiko replied before taking a red berry in her mouth. Who do you think will win? Pa. Oh, so you think your papa will win? Aiko nodded as she looked at the projection of the battlefield, which showed her papa looking at his enemies with a confident smile on his face. Kiaza chuckled as he shifted his attention back to the battle. The battlefield where Lux and the others were currently fighting was gifted to him by someone who had suddenly appeared inside the dungeon several years ago. That person said that if there ever came a time when someone entered the dungeon and managed to reach the inner grotto, to have them play the game to relieve him of his boredom. After seeing how the half-elf fought against the kobolds, the crystal dragon found it quite amusing. That person didn't lie, Kiaza thought. This siege warfare indeed is good entertainment. When Cadmus returned to the middle lane of the battlefield, he saw Lux standing beside his twin towers, with his arms crossed over his chest. The moment Lux saw the draconic kobold, the half-elf waved his hand in a teasing manner. Cadmus snorted as he kept his distance. He had learned from his earlier mistake and decided to not blindly charge towards the red-headed teenager who was hiding behind the watchtowers. Those watchtowers need to go, Cadmus thought as he eyed the 2 towers with a serious expression on his face. His own middle lane towers were halfway damaged, but he didn't know what to do about it. If I get too close, that fatso will use that trick again to force me to charge in their direction, Cadmus thought with a grim expression on his face. Although the 2 of them are weaklings, the towers hurt a lot. I won't be able to last long if I come within their range. The draconic kobold felt frustrated because he couldn't do the things he usually did in the beginner's zone. In his own home turf, he could move unhindered and kill anyone he liked. However, when it came to the battlefield he was on, there were things that couldn't be solved by brute force alone. Lux snickered inwardly after seeing the cautious Cadmus in the distance. He was quite a ways out of the range of Puzz's dual X, so they couldn't force him into their tower's attack range. Well, it doesn't matter, Lux thought as he casually threw a rock at one of the crystal soldiers, dealing the last hit and earning gold coins. I'll just destroy this tower first. 5 minutes later, one of the two towers in the middle lane that belonged to the kobolds fell. This gave Lux an additional 500 gold, which brought him closer to being able to purchase the recipe he needed to transform his boots into teleportation boots. The teleportation boots allowed him to freely teleport to any location in the map, as long as his allies were there. It was one of the most indispensable items in the game he played back then, and he planned to use it to the fullest in order to deal with the kobolds. As the half-elf threw rocks at his enemies, taking the last hit, the gold in his possession increased once again. This was something that the kobolds still hadn't discovered yet, and they were simply earning 1 gold coin every second. When the last tower of the middle lane fell, Lux gained another 500 gold, which was enough to buy the recipe for the item that he needed. Cadmus watched as the crystal soldiers pushed through the middle lane and headed in his direction. "You won't get past me," Cadmus roared as he fired a dragon breath at the crystal soldiers, leaving them with only a small fraction of their health. Lux then immediately threw several rocks at his allies, killing them, in order to prevent Cadmus from being able to gain any more gold once he killed them. The draconic kobold was confused by Lux's behavior and simply thought that the half-elf had turned crazy. It was at that moment when Cadmus heard a screech in the distance. A raven descended from the sky and landed on Lux's arms. A few seconds later, a golden radiance erupted around Lux's body, before the raven flew towards the sky once again and headed back in the direction of their stronghold. "Pazuzu, you know what to do, right?" Lux asked. Pazuzu nodded. "Yes, my lord." The demonic defender ran into the forest using his Madlid rush to go to the bottom lanes, so he could help the crystal soldiers on their side to destroy the kobolds' lower towers. Lux, on the other hand, waved at Cadmus with a smile as he ran behind one of the two guard towers that belonged to him. The half-elf immediately activated his boots of teleportation and teleported to the top lanes to help his allies destroy the tower there. Cadmus stared at the tower. Lux stepped behind and frowned. "Is he perhaps hiding from me?" Cadmus thought. "That must be it. He knew that he couldn't beat me in a direct confrontation, so he is depending on those two towers to defeat me." As expected of a weakling, the draconic kobold sneered internally as he held his ground. He believed that as long as he stayed in the middle lane, none of Lux's forces would be able to pass by him. Meanwhile, at the top lanes of the battlefield, Lux saw one kobold mage and one kobold shaman in the top lanes, which had greatly helped their forces damage his towers. Right now, one of the towers only had a third of its health remaining and was on the brink of collapse. Even so, Lux wasn't worried because he already had a plan in mind. "Let's go, Diablo," Lux ordered, and his named creature emerged from the forest and used his dual X skill to pull the kobold mage towards their tower. "Damn it," the kobold mage shouted in anger as it was forced to head towards the skeleton rider, who was standing near the two deadly towers that had killed Cadmus and its other comrades. "Sorry, not sorry," Lux chuckled as the kobold mage was bombarded by the tower's concentrated attacks. "Curse you, half-elf," the kobold mage shouted in anger before Diablo's sword stabbed his chest, taking his life and the last hit reward. Lux's plan was to let Diablo gain experience points, so his rank would increase, as well as get enough gold to buy the items he needed. The red-headed teenager was more of a support character, while the end-game damage dealer, or what gamers refer to as carries, would be Diablo and Ishtar. The half-elf knew that once his two carries had been properly equipped, the kobolds wouldn't stand a chance against them. After killing the kobold mage, the kobold shaman hastily retreated, but an ice arrow hit him in the back, slowing his movement speed. Ishtar released several arrows to not only whittle the kobold shaman's life away, but also reduce its movement speed, making it move very slowly. Filthy undead, the kobold shaman hatefully cursed as it summoned several wind blades to attack the skeleton hunter, who was treating him like a shooting practice target. Ishtar casually evaded the kobold shaman's attack before continuing her range attacks. A few seconds later, a bone spear pierced through the kobold shaman's chest, ending its life. Less than double kill, greater than. As the kobold turned into particles of light, its eyes filled with unwillingness landed on the skeleton rider, whose body was glowing crimson. For now, every slain creature in the battlefield whether it be foes or allies, strengthened Diablo. The red-headed teenager chuckled evilly when he saw that Diablo had already gained plus 100 bonus to physical and magical damage, as well as plus 100 to defense due to the skill Blood Fervor, which was an ability of Diablo's Blackrock Legacy set. Cadmus, oh, Cadmus, you're in for a surprise later. Lux chuckled inwardly as he looked at Diablo's damage and defense stats. With every minute that passed, Diablo's strength grew as both allies and enemies supplied him with additional damage and defense. Diablo, let's do this, Lux said as he raised his hand to activate the skill Battlecry, which added 100 bonus physical and magical damage to him and his allies. Diablo also raised his sword and activated his own skill, Warlord's Warcry, which added another 200 bonus physical and magical damage to all of his allies. The combined plus 300 to attack and defense made all the crystal soldiers' bodies turn crimson red as their attacks increased drastically. Break the towers, Lux ordered, and their combined forces easily broke the 2 towers, giving them bonus gold points. After the 2 towers were destroyed, Lux charged alongside Diablo and the others and destroyed the 2 towers that were 300 meters away from the 2 towers that they had just destroyed. Due to their increase in strength, the 2 towers fell helplessly. Less than your towers on the top lanes have been destroyed. Greater than. Cadmus gasped in shock after hearing the words that resounded inside his head. He watched as his 2 towers in the middle lanes were destroyed a few minutes ago, and now, the towers belonging to the top lanes had been destroyed as well, which greatly shocked him. Just as the draconic kobold was thinking of what to do next, another notification reached his ears which made his blood turn cold. Less than your towers on the top lanes have been destroyed. Greater than. With an angry roar, Cadmus ran towards the top lanes in order to prevent Lux from destroying the guard towers that were located at the entrance of their stronghold. Just what in Bahamut's name is happening? Cadmus shouted internally as he ran with all of his might. Don't let me catch you, half-elf. I will make sure you die a very slow and painful death. After destroying the 2 sets of towers on the top lanes, Diablo and Ishtar returned to the forest, while Lux teleported to the bottom lanes to reunite with Pazuzu. He was chuckling inwardly as he bought an item from the store in his stronghold and ordered the Raven to deliver it to him. Just like the game in his world, each hero was only allowed to equip 6 items from the store. Right now, the only thing he had were the boots of teleportation, but one more item was on the way. With this item, the red-headed teenager was sure that even if Cadmus were to cross his path, he would be able to escape from the draconic kobold without any problems. The kobolds were starting to get frustrated because they couldn't believe that the half-elf and his skeletons had been able to overpower them 15 minutes after their battle started. Sometimes, Diablo would come charging at them out of nowhere without being detected. Other times, they would see the skeletal rider with his body turned completely blue, and his attack damage doubled, which easily reduced their health to 0 after they encountered him. The worst part was when they saw 3 Diablos at the same time, which made them feel their livers ache. This bastard always knows where we are, the eldest kobold mage said. Is he cheating? It's as if he knows where we are hiding when we are about to ambush him, and he goes in the other direction. This might be the reason for that. One of the kobold shamans took out an item from his bag. This is called spy wards. You can place them on the ground, which allows you to see certain areas of the battlefield. He might be using these things to know our location. Petty tricks, one of the kobold raiders hissed in anger. He thought that he was so smart. Then let's fill the entire place with these spy wards. Let's see if he can hide from us. Cadmus felt that it was beneath him to rely on such tactics, but he was out of options. At this point in time, the half-elf was destroying their towers left and right, and his skeletons were ambushing his subordinates and killing them. If they didn't counter his methods, all of them would be forced to just camp in their stronghold and wait for the half-elf to come knocking on their door. All of you go to the store and buy these spy wards, Cadmus ordered. Make sure to place them across the entirety of the map so we can see where this half-elf is going. Yes, Lux snickered as he opened his eyes. Fools, why are you discussing your plans right beside my spy ward? Isn't that just asking for trouble? The half-elf smiled as he gave an order to Ishtar to return to the fortress to buy a certain item that would make the kobolds regret their decision. All of you might be stronger than me in the outside world, but here, you're just noobs. Lux summoned his skeletons as he prepared to assist Pazuzu in taking down the towers on the bottom lanes of the map. He was already looking forward to the items Diablo and Ishtar were building to deal with the draconic kobold, who was the greatest threat in the battlefield at this point in time. Less than your towers on the bottom lanes have been destroyed. Greater than. The kobolds exchanged glances at each other before looking at Cadmus, whose face had already turned beet red from anger. The draconic kobolds simply couldn't accept how they were being one-sidedly beaten by the half-elf whom they thought was a weakling. Maybe he is really cheating, the oldest kobold mage said. There is just no way that we can lose against him. That has to be it, right? Before the other kobolds could voice their opinions, a proud, yet teasing voice reached their ears. Less than he is not cheating. Greater than. Kia's voice made all the kobolds shudder as they all subconsciously went down on their knees to show their respect for the crystal dragon. Less than. As much as I appreciate the gesture, the more you delay, the more the half-elf is going to win this game. I will only give you one piece of advice and one piece only. Do not rely on your brute strength and buy items from the store before it's too late. Greater than. Your Excellency, can you please tell us what items we should buy from the store? The kobold shaman respectfully asked with his head still bowed. However, Kiaza no longer replied, and the kobolds no longer felt his presence, making them feel lost. You, and you, come with me to the bottom lanes to protect our last tower, Cadmus ordered. The rest, plant those spy wards so we will know where the half-elf is. Should we also plant them inside the forest? The eldest kobold mage asked. His skeleton rider ambushes us from there, so I think it is a good idea to place some spy wards over there as well. Do what you must, Cadmus replied before turning towards one of the stores to purchase a boot to increase his movement speed. His Excellency has already spoken. Make sure to check the stores for any useful items that we can use. We will beat that half-elf with his own strategy. Remember, when Cadmus attacks you, activate the ability of that armor. Okay, Lux said. Pazuzu understands. Lux had patiently explained to Pazuzu the items he should get in order to fight against their opponents. Since the demonic defender was a tank, the red-headed teenager would dress him up as a monstrous tank that would make Cadmus feel like he was fighting the wrong person. Just as Lux was about to give an order, he saw 4 kobolds enter the forest. 2 of them were kobold mages, while the other 2 were kobold raiders. The red-headed teenager sneered because he already knew what they were planning to do, so he decided to make a detour towards the forest, alongside all of his minions, so they could earn some easy gold coins. Okay, I planted all the spy wards in my possession, the kobold raider said. How about you guys? I'm done. Me, too. I've already finished setting mine. The kobold raider nodded. Very well, let's go back. Before he could even finish his words, he saw Lux and Ishtar riding on a warg, alongside the skeletal rider, Diablo. He was not only him who saw this scene, his entire team did as well. They're here, the kobold raider shouted. The spy wards are working. Now, let's hurry back to the fortress. All the kobolds ran away, but there was one big problem. None of them were wearing any boots or other items that increased their movement speed. It only took Lux and Diablo a minute to overtake them, and a battle immediately broke out between the half-elf's forces and the 4 kobolds. I will take your head, half-elf, the kobold raider declared as he charged towards Lux. Well, you need to catch him first, Lux sneered as Diablo charged towards the kobold raider using its skill, Hero's Charge. Hero's Charge, a full-powered charge attack that deals 300% of your overall physical damage to your target, can only be used when mounted on a beast. If your enemy is bigger than you, deal an additional 100% damage to your target. Can only be used when mounted on a beast. Right now, Diablo had an attack buff of plus 1000 points due to the combined war cries, as well as the effect of the Blackrock Legacy armor. This was a very terrifying number, because Diablo's normal attack damage, plus the damage of the items he had equipped, as well as other passive skills that increased his damage, were excluded from that attack buff. Now that the skeleton rider had used its most powerful, mounted attack, his damage was further increased to a terrifying 300%. As soon Diablo collided with the kobold raider, the kobold's reaction instantly changed as it spat blood from the injury it received from Diablo's attack. It only took Diablo one more slash at the kobold warrior's head to kill it completely. By the kobold gods, the kobold shaman exclaimed, "A monster has appeared." The morale of the kobolds were instantly shattered as Lux's forces bulldozed through them, turning them into gold coins. "Ishtar, do it," Lux ordered, and the skeleton hunter immediately ran through the forest and destroyed all the spy wards that had been placed on the ground. She had equipped an item called the All-Seeing Gem, which allowed her to see invisible things. Cadmus had originally planned to reinforce his comrades, but before he was even halfway to his destination, the kobolds were already dead. He stopped his advance and hesitated whether he should continue or not. "Is this the effect of the items in the store?" Cadmus thought before clenching his fists. "No, I should kill them now while I can. If I let this continue, they might get stronger. Who cares if they outnumber me? They have no towers to save them here." The draconic kobold then ran into the forest with determination. He believed in his strength, and he knew that even if Lux was able to easily deal with his comrades, he would have a hard time dealing with him. 40 minutes had passed since the start of the battle, and Lux's forces were now better equipped. Diablos and Ishtar's level had already increased to level 15. While Lux and Pazuzu were at level 12. Cadmus was at level 23, which made him the stronger creature on the battlefield. When Lux saw the draconic kobold appear in the forest, the smile on his face widened. "He wants a direct battle," Lux thought. "Good decision. Unfortunately, now is not the time." Lux used his boots of teleportation and teleported to the bottom lanes. Alongside all of his named creatures, Diablo, Ishtar, and Pazuzu were all equipped with boots of teleportation to allow them to coordinate with Lux's strategy. Cadmus, who had just arrived at the location where his friends had died, scanned his surroundings with caution. "Come out," Cadmus shouted. "Fight me, you cowards." No one replied to his challenge. Instead, he heard a notification that made him roar in frustration. "Less than your towers on the bottom lanes have been destroyed greater than." Cadmus was about to run to the bottom lanes when he heard another notification. "Your stronghold towers on the bottom lanes have been destroyed. Less than barracks have been destroyed, greater than. Less than Animus crystal warriors have grown stronger, greater than." Cadmus had no time to think and used the teleportation scroll that he had bought at the store located near the forest. When Lux saw the shining light in the distance, he immediately ordered his forces to retreat. "Let's go back to the fortress to do some shopping," Lux ordered as he urged his warg, Jed, to return to their base. All the kobolds had congregated at the bottom entrance of their stronghold, which had been breached by the enemies. Although the opponent's crystal soldiers had indeed grown stronger, they were still able to defend it to a certain degree. Now that the kobolds had learned the importance of the store, all of them started to buy items that they thought would be useful to them, allowing them to patch up the cracks in their defenses. After buying the equipment they needed, Lux led his forces to fight against Kong Kong, which dropped a certain item that would be useful in their attack on the kobolds' stronghold. Now that the battle was inside the kobolds' base, the half-elf knew that they would have no choice but to face Cadmus head-on. In order to prepare for any mishaps, he decided to kill Kong Kong first, as insurance against their clash against the rank 5 alpha monster. Less than Kong Kong has been slain, greater than. Cadmus and the kobolds glanced at each other in confusion. "Who is Kong Kong?" "No idea. Is he someone important?" "I don't know. Maybe he's just a nobody." "Stop talking and start killing, you bastards," the oldest kobold mage shouted. "We are being overrun here and you idiots still have time for idle chat." The kobolds hurriedly returned to their duty of defending their base from the crystal warriors that had grown in strength. It was also at that moment when one of the kobolds shouted, "They are attacking the gates at the top lane." Cadmus didn't think twice and ran towards the gates where Lux and his forces had appeared. He would not allow the half-elf the opportunity to destroy another gate, which would make their defense crumble. "You shall not pass," Cadmus shouted before he unleashed his dragon's breath, towards the half-elf who was busy hacking at the base of the guard tower. Lux continued his attack and ignored the dragon's breath because he wasn't fighting alone. Pazuzu appeared in front of him and raised his shield. However, that was not the only thing that the demonic defender did. Steel spikes jutted out of his body, making him look like a metallic porcupine. When the dragon breath hit Pazuzu's shield, Cadmus gasped in pain because he also received the full brunt of his damage. It was as if the one that got hit by the dragon's breath was him instead of the demonic defender, whose body had been pushed back several meters. Until he hit the guard tower, only 50 points remained in the demonic defender's health, showing how powerful the dragon's breath was. Cadmus' health, on the other hand, had been reduced by a third after he had unleashed his strongest attack. Pazuzu hastily retreated behind the formation as his health regenerated at a rapid rate. Lux had equipped Pazuzu with a heart of behemoth, which increased his health regeneration, as well as provided him with the spiked armor, which returned any damage he received back to his enemy. This ability lasted for 5 seconds, making it one of the most optimal items for the demonic defender. Cadmus roared in anger as he charged towards Lux, but his charge slowed down after he was repeatedly hit by ice arrows. Ishtar fearlessly fired arrow after arrow at the draconic kobold, who could easily snap her in two in the outside world. But here, things were different. Although Ishtar couldn't beat Cadmus one-on-one, she could beat him if she had backup. The nightmare charged at Cadmus as Diablo's eyes shone brightly from under his metallic helmet. "Ymir insect!" Cadmus hatefully shouted as he raised his sword to attack the skeleton, who was charging at him, with flames blazing behind his mount. Diablo had activated his skill, Hero's Charge, and planned to deal with the hateful draconic kobold, who looked down on his master. The skeleton rider was Lux's firstborn, and for him, anyone who dared to look down on his master deserved to be punished severely. The moment Cadmus' sword and Diablo's Oathbreaker collided, a metallic rang spread across the surroundings, followed by a minor shockwave. The two strongest heroes on both sides of the battlefield had clashed, and only one of them would remain once this clash was over. Lux continued to hack away at the guard tower with all of his might. He had full faith in Diablo, so he would perform his role well, and ensure that this siege of theirs would succeed no matter what. Iron skidded a few meters across the ground with its rider, Diablo, after their first clash against the alpha monster. Cadmus couldn't hide the shock on his face when he felt the unexpected force behind Diablo's strike, which made his arm numb. Although he won the initial exchange, the skeleton rider's blow made him treat his opponent more seriously. The kobolds, who were watching the battle from afar, were also shocked at the performance of their enemy. Because of this, the oldest kobold mage ordered the rest of the kobolds to support Cadmus, while he held back the opponent's strengthened crystal warriors. "Kill the half-elf," the oldest kobold mage ordered. "Don't let him destroy our guard towers." The other kobolds nodded their heads and hurriedly charged towards the half-elf who had just finished destroying one of the two towers beside their stronghold's main gate. "Hack away, boys!" Lux ordered his skeletons to focus fire on the remaining towers. Ishtar, deal with those small fry kobolds. Show them the power of the Forgotten Queen. The battlefield was quite special since it also had a day and night setting. The sun had just set, and because of Ishtar's title of Forgotten Queen, all of her stats increased by 50% during the night. What did that mean? It meant that the skeleton hunter had become 50% more deadly. Just like Diablo, Ishtar was overgeared and was more than a match for the rank 3 kobolds, who weren't even wearing any kind of special equipment on their bodies. The moment Ishtar's icy arrow hit one of the kobold raiders, the latter immediately felt a world of pain, making it gasp in shock. Ishtar carried 4 pseudo-legendary items in her possession. One of them was none other than the wind bow, which increased her agility, attack damage, evasion, and attack speed. Her second item was the critical shard, which increased her damage, as well as the chances of landing critical hits on her enemies. The third item was the boots of teleportation, which allowed her to teleport anywhere around the map, alongside Lux, allowing them to bulldoze their way through their opponents with ease. The last item on her arsenal was the Thunder Shard, which Ishtar immediately activated, surrounding herself with 5 orbs of lightning. This item imbued her attacks with lightning, in addition to increasing her attack speed, making her a moving turret that could decimate anything and everything she hit. When the kobold raider was about to flee, a bolt of lightning hit its head, making it explode. The kobold then turned into particles of light, making the rest of the small fry kobolds look at Ishtar in horror. However, before the other kobold raider could flee, Ishtar's ice arrow hit it, slowing its movement speed. "Help me!" the kobold raider screamed in fear as his health decreased at an incredibly fast rate, while Ishtar fired arrow after arrow as if there was no tomorrow. The kobold mage then pointed its staff at the skeleton hunter, but soon found itself running towards the fat demonic defender, who had appeared behind Ishtar. "Hateful land dwellers!" the kobold mage shouted in anger, as he found himself moving helplessly towards the enemy's vanguard. Lux and his skeletons focused fire on the kobold mage, killing it in a matter of seconds. After the kobold mage died, they once again focused their attacks on the stronghold's guard tower, destroying it completely. Cadmus, who was fighting against Diablo, roared in anger when he saw the last tower collapse under Lux's determined assault. "Your stronghold towers on the top lanes have been destroyed." Cadmus immediately bashed Diablo to the side as he prepared to unleash his dragon breath to kill the half-elf who was madly hitting the barracks of their stronghold. Just as Cadmus was about to unleash his powerful attack, he halted midway as Diablo used his dual X skill to force the draconic kobold to attack him. A hate-filled growl escaped Cadmus' lips as he was forced to exchange a blow with the skeleton rider, whose attacks had been raised to a frightening level due to the constant death that was happening around him. With every slain ally or foe, the blood fervor ability grew, raising his attack and defense to a level that even Cadmus found hard to deal with. Just as the draconic kobold sent Diablo and his nightmare mount flying a few meters away with a backhand blow, an announcement sounded in his ears, which made his eyes turn bloodshot. "Less than barracks have been destroyed, greater than less than Animus crystal warriors have grown stronger, greater than." Damn you! Cadmus charged towards Lux with only one thing in mind, and that was to end his life. Just as he was about to cleave the hateful half-elf in two, Lux sneered at him as he raised a staff pointed in the draconic kobold's direction. "Croak for me!" Lux roared. Lux had 3 pseudo-legendary equipments in his possession. One of them was the Boots of Teleportation, another was the Polytoad Staff. This staff increased the intelligence stat, as well as the user's mana regeneration. But those aside, it also had one annoying ability, and that was transforming its target into a small toad for 3 seconds. The hulking draconic kobold instantly transformed into a toad, which Lux happily kicked like a soccer ball, sending it flying dozens of meters in the air. Cadmus reverted back to his draconic form, and subconsciously flat his wings to break his fall. "Less than you broke the rule. Time for you to be evicted." Truly a pity greater than. Kia's sigh reverberated in the surroundings as Cadmus turned into particles of light, causing the remaining kobolds inside the stronghold to despair. Lux had hoped for this scenario to happen, since there was only a small chance that Cadmus would break the rule that Kiaza had given him as his handicap. After seeing the biggest threat in the battlefield disappear, Lux shifted his attention to the oldest kobold mage, as well as the 2 kobold shamans, who were frantically defending the last 2 towers that protected their stronghold's core. "Kill!" Lux ordered as his forces charged at the last 3 kobolds whose faces had turned grim. They knew that the battle was over the moment Cadmus was kicked out of the battle, and the only thing they could do was accept their fate as Diablo, Ishtar, and Pazuzu charged in their direction with their eyes glowing with excitement. Despite their desperate efforts, the 3 kobolds were powerless against Lux's 2 powerful named creatures, who specialized in dealing massive damage to their enemies. Lux didn't even feel a shred of guilt, as the 3 kobolds died one after the other. This siege battle could only have one winner in the end, and he decided that it would be himself. The moment the stronghold core got destroyed, Lux found himself standing on one of the floating islands inside the inner grotto. The kobolds were also on one of the islands, and all of them glared towards Lux's direction, especially Cadmus, who kept clenching and unclenching his fists out of anger. Just as Lux was thinking about how he could fix the tension between him and the kobolds, an adorable voice reached his ears which made him look up in the sky. Pa, Aiko, who was perched on top of Kiaza's head, jumped towards Lux while giggling. The half-elf immediately used his air strider X skill to catch the naughty baby, who dared to sit on top of a crystal dragon's head. That was a most excellent performance, Kiaza said as he gazed at Lux. Truly amusing. The half-elf only smiled because he didn't know how to reply to the crystal dragon's praise. All he wanted was to leave the dungeon as soon as possible before Kiaza forced him to play another one of his amusing games. Your name is Lux, right? Kiaza asked. Yes, Your Excellency, Lux replied. Kiaza nodded. Good. Now, follow me. The crystal dragon flattened its wings and rose in the air. A few seconds later, a powerful breeze sucked Lux up towards the sky, making Aiko, who was in his arms, giggle. The baby slime thought that they were going to play another game and that, this time, she would be joining her papa in battle. As the red-headed teenager floated in the sky, he noticed that he was headed towards the highest floating island in the inner grotto, which seemed to be the one where Kiaza lived. Instead of feeling happiness like the baby slime in his hands, the half-elf's expression became more grim as he neared the island. Truth be told, he would rather stay with Cadmus and the kobolds who were mad at him, than stay with Kiaza, whose rank made him anxious. You think too much, half-elf, Kiaza said as soon as Lux landed on his island. Like I said earlier, as long as you don't attack me first, or steal my treasures, I will allow you to leave this place alive. There was a slight pause in your words, Your Excellency, Lux replied. The crystal dragon eyed Lux as he gave the latter a mischievous smile. You're just imagining things. Lux zipped his lips and no longer said anything. His behavior caused Kiaza chuckle. The dragon invited the half-elf to follow behind him. At the center of the floating island was a grand temple that was at least the size of 2 football stadiums. The moment Lux entered the interior of the temple, he found himself staring at a sea of precious gems that littered the floor. It was as if he was looking at a rainbow-colored sea that sparkled in the sunlight. Aiko looked at this scene with great interest. She was even planning to jump over to the hoard of gems to play, but Lux made sure to hold her firmly in his hands. He was afraid that Aiko's next move might anger Kiaza, so he decided to rein in his playful daughter, just to be on the safe side. Long ago, the city of Eshbul flourished alongside my dungeon, Kiaza said. However, as the city grew, so did the greed of the rulers that managed it. Did you know this dungeon used to have 50 floors? Now, it only has the outer and inner grotto, Kiaza narrated as he laid in the center of its treasure hoard while gazing at Lux, who stayed outside the sea of gems that belonged to the crystal dragon. Because of the ruler's greed, they tried to take my treasures, and a battle ensued. Truth be told, they were no match against us, but they called for outside help. Kiaza scoffed as he remembered the foul memory of his past. Do you know whose help they asked for? Kiaza inquired. Lux hesitated for a bit before giving his answer. Elves. Right, they asked help from elves. Unfortunately, the elves they invited were just as greedy as the ruler. While Indus, the giant worm, and I were fighting against the king and his subordinates, the elves broke into the dungeon core room and used their magic to gain authority over it. The first thing they did was place a condition that no one could enter the dungeon unless they were accompanied by someone with elven blood, Kiaza explained. This was to ensure that the king of Eshbul would have no choice but to cooperate with their race if they wished to gain the treasures inside the dungeon. Their plan almost succeeded, but thanks to Inda's overbearing attitude, they had no choice but to leave the dungeon core before they could corrupt it further. At least, that was what Indus and I planned. Unfortunately, they were in the middle of performing a high-ranking magic spell when Indus went after them, so the spell went haywire. The spell permanently damaged the dungeon core and slowly led to this dungeon's decay. Kiaza paused before closing its eyes. Today is the last day that this dungeon will exist, Kiaza stated. The dungeon core has reached its limit, so it can no longer support its functions. You and the kobolds will be the last visitors of the Grotto of the Forbidden Guardian. The moment Kiaza finished talking, several artifacts flew from his treasure trove and floated in front of Lux. You may choose 3 items from my treasury, Kiaza declared. This will be the last gift I will bestow upon mortals before this dungeon vanishes from the face of the world. So, choose wisely. Choose 3 items from Kiaza's treasure vault. Golden Dragon Token, Boots of Teleportation, Spear of Azrael, Replica, Dragon Mythic Path Quest, Argonaut Rank Beast Core, Crystal Dragon. You can only absorb this beast core once you become a ranker. Rank 5 Beast Core, Indus Death Worm, Martial Arts Skill Book, Dragon War Art, a Vial of Dragon's Blood. There were over 20 items to choose from, and all of them were amazing in their own right. Earlier, Lux thought that Kiaza was quite generous when it had given him the option of choosing 3 items from his treasury. However, after seeing everything that it had to offer, he realized that 3 was not enough to get the items he truly wanted. For example, the Martial Arts Skill Book, Dragon War Art. There were several martial arts in the world, and some of them were exclusive to a family's bloodline. The Xer war art that Lux practiced was a martial art that was exclusive to the Xer family, and only those with their bloodline would be able to use it. Vera had to host a special ceremony in order to allow Lux to use their family's war art without receiving a backlash. This was the only way for the half-elf to use a bloodline art that he couldn't possibly use normally. The Dragon War art required the user to have a bit of dragon blood running through their veins. But even if Lux didn't have any draconic bloodline in him, there was a method he could use, which was taking the vial of dragon's blood. Once he drank it, a small amount of dragon blood would flow inside his body, giving him the ability to use the Dragon War art without any problem. Then there was the Boots of Teleportation. It could allow Lux to instantly teleport up to 5 miles from his location to an ally's location, meaning he could send Diablo or any of his other skeletons somewhere and teleport to them with the help of the boots. Although Argonaut Rank Beast Core wasn't rare when you reached the advanced zones of Elysium, the beast core that belonged to a crystal dragon was very rare. This was why Lux decided to take it no matter what. Any skill that belonged to a dragon was bound to be powerful. If Lux could upgrade it to a higher form with his evolution skill, it would become more deadly in his hands. The Golden Dragon Token allowed Lux to create a guild. There were several guild ranks, and they were known as the Bronze, Silver, Gold, Platinum, Diamond, and Legendary Heaven-ranked guilds. The Wildjard Guild in Elysium was Silver-ranked, while the Barbados Guild in Elysium was a Gold-ranked guild. This just showed how difficult it was to acquire a Platinum-ranked and Diamond-ranked guild in Elysium. They had to complete many outstanding feats before their respective kingdoms or empires gave them the approval to raise their guild's rank. The Golden Dragon Token also gave Lux the ability to summon an Argonaut-ranked crystal dragon 3 times. This was something quite unexpected and a trump card that he could use as a last resort, so he also planned to get the Golden Dragon Token as well. As one of the 3 items he would choose from the treasury. The Dragon Mythic Part Quest, on the other hand, was a mystery. The Elysium Compendium only described the quest as the path to understanding the ways of the dragon. It was such a vague description, and Lux wasn't sure if it was worth choosing. In the end, Lux could only sigh in his heart because he could only choose 3 of them. I wish I could choose more, but I guess this is the limit, Lux thought as he picked the 3 items that he wanted from the list. It was a very hard decision to make, but the half-elf knew that he had chosen the things that he needed in order to grow stronger in the world of Elysium. Are you sure that these are the 3 items that you want? Kiaza asked. Lux nodded. Yes. It was not easy, but after deliberating for a long time, the half-elf settled for the 3 items that were currently floating in front of him. The first item he chose was the Golden Dragon Token, which allowed him to create a guild, as well as summon an Argonaut-ranked crystal dragon to help him. The second one was the Argonaut-ranked Beast Core, although he could only use it after he became a ranker. Choosing the last item was the hardest part, since there were many other items that Lux wanted to have. However, it was not possible, so he settled for something that allowed him to travel to places without too much hassle. Yes, The last item that Lux chose was none other than the boots of teleportation. He felt that as long as he had this artifact, he would be able to come and go wherever he pleased as long as the destination was within 5 miles around him. Since this dungeon will disappear the moment you leave this place, I decided to add some freebies to your rewards. Kiaza grinned. I noticed earlier that you wanted the dragon war art, but you were unable to wield it because you don't have the blood of dragons flowing in your veins. Since that is the case, I will bestow upon you the dragon war art, as well as the vial of dragon's blood. This will be my last gift to you. Please, take it. A worn-out book as well as a vial that contained a dark red liquid, which Lux assumed to be dragon's blood, floated in front of him. Thank you, Your Excellency. Lux bowed his head respectfully in order to thank the generous crystal dragon, who had just given him an unexpected surprise. Don't thank me yet, Kiaza said. You need to drink that dragon's blood here, and use the skill book in my presence. This is to ensure that you will be the only one to use it. I'd hate it if you were to suddenly auction these items just to get some gold coins. I don't care what you do with the other items you handpicked, but this gift that I have given you must be used here. Lux nodded his head in understanding, and drank the dragon's blood in front of Kiaza's watchful eyes. Suddenly, a burning sensation erupted from inside his chest, as his body heated up, turning his skin red. Pa! Eiko, who was perched on top of Lux's head, cried out in alarm as the half-elf collapsed on the ground and writhed in pain. Don't worry, little one, Kiaza assured the slime, who started to cry after seeing her papa's condition. He will be fine maybe. Wooloo, the baby slime cried as she pressed her head against Lux's forehead that was as hot as coal. It was at that moment when a series of notifications appeared in front of Lux, but he was in too much pain to pay any attention to them. Less than detected the blood of the red dragon, greater than. Less than initializing synchronization with special body physique, greater than. Less than preparing integration, greater than. Less than synchronization starting, greater than. Less than synchronization rate, 1% greater than. Less than synchronization rate, 18% greater than. Less than synchronization rate, 39% greater than. Less than synchronization rate, 78% greater than. Less than synchronization rate, 100% greater than. Less than synchronization successful, greater than. Less than Immortal Conqueror's Legacy has been upgraded to Immortal Dragon Conqueror's Legacy, greater than. Less than Special Body Physique will be upgraded by 1 rank, greater than. Immortal Dragon Conqueror's Legacy. Rating E. Progress 0 quarters 000. Bonus rewards plus 10,000 health points, plus 10,000 mana points, plus 3 to all summon skeleton skills. Complete immunity to fire. Learned skill, Dragon's Fear. Learned Draconic language. Once a day, you can use Dragon's Breath. Conquest is not all about claiming lands and expanding your domain. True conquest is conquering the hearts of people. Once you gain their loyalty, the path to dominion will open its doors for you. Note: boost. Less than skill evolution, X, detected a new skill greater than. Since the skill Dragon's Fear is not learned from a beast core, it will automatically be upgraded to Dragon's Fear, X, equals. Less than Dragon's Fear, X, greater than. Enemies below your rank. Any enemy below your current rank will find themselves paralyzed in fear and unable to fight effectively. Decrease enemy's movement and attack speed by 80%. Decrease enemy's physical and magical damage by 80%. Enemies 1 rank above you. Any enemy that is 1 rank above you would find themselves unable to fight effectively. Decrease enemy's movement and attack speed by 50%. Decrease enemy's physical and magical damage by 50%. Dragon's Fear, X, will have no effect on enemies that are 2 ranks and above your current rank, equals. Lux kept panting even after the pain he felt subsided. His skin had already returned to its normal color, and the paleness in his expression gradually starting to fade away. I'm fine, Eiko, Lux said as he lay on the ground. While trying to regain his composure, Eiko had stopped crying and jumped on Lux's chest. She could tell that her papa was recovering, so There was no need for her to be worried anymore. Congratulations, Kiaza nodded in satisfaction. The dragon's blood has successfully integrated with your body. Although it is only a few drops of blood, it is more than enough for you to learn the dragon war art. The blood will also strengthen your body and make it tougher when compared to normal mortals. I don't really know the specifics, so you will have to find the changes that have happened in your body by yourself. Also, don't worry, the blood you gained will not be enough for you to transform into a dragon or grow dragon wings behind your back, but that could change in the future if you happen to gain the blood of a red dragon to further refine your bloodline. Lux slowly propped himself up from the ground before grabbing the Dragon War Art Skill book and opening it. A moment later, the book transformed into particles of light and flew inside Lux's body. Knowledge of the Dragon Ward art appeared inside his mind. The half-elf knew that it would take some time before he fully understood the information that was planted inside his head, so he decided to fully study his new martial art after he left the dungeon. See you later, Lux, Kiaza said as the crystal dragon turned into particles of light and merged with the golden dragon token that floated in front of the half-elf. Lux subconsciously reached out to hold the golden token in his hand and observed it. The image of a crystal dragon with its wings spread wide could be seen embedded on its surface, making the half-elf understand why Kiaza said, "See you later, Lux," instead of, "Goodbye, Lux." Lux then grabbed the teleportation boots and equipped them. Lastly, he took the floating Argonaut beast core and placed it inside his storage ring. As soon as Lux took all of his rewards, a light descended from above his head and covered him completely in its blinding radiance. A moment later, the entire dungeon shook as the dungeon core shattered into hundreds of pieces. A few seconds later, the grotto of the Forbidden Guardian vanished from the face of the world, never to be seen again. After the light receded, Lux found himself standing by the entrance of the dungeon. At least, that was where he was supposed to be. Unfortunately, the structure in front of him had collapsed. The S-ranked dungeon that had degraded over the years finally met its end, and Kiaza had given Lux the final gift it was capable of giving before the dungeon disappeared from the world. Cadmus, as well as the other kobolds, were standing behind Lux. None of them knew what happened between Kiaza and the half-elf. However, one thing was clear: the mysterious dungeon within the ancient ruins was no more. Just as Lux was thinking of what to do next, the ground shook as a resounding roar reverberated in the surroundings. The Indus death worm appeared in front of Lux and the kobolds behind him. Its powerful cry alarmed the kobold race, who were in the midst of unearthing the secrets of the ancient ruins. All of them could only stare helplessly at the monster, who clearly didn't belong to the beginner's zone, and had the power to wipe them all from the face of the earth. The Indus deathworm lowered its massive head until it was only a few meters away from the half-elf, who currently held the golden dragon token in his hand. Aiko, who was perched on top of Lux's head, had a serious expression on her face as she prepared to fight against the Indus death worm in order to give her papa some time to escape. "It's fine, Aiko," Lux said in order to stop the baby slime from provoking the giant death worm. "Indus won't hurt me." The reason he said that was due to the fact that he wasn't sensing any killing intent coming from the monster in front of him. Indus had no eyes, but it was capable of hearing even the faintest vibrations in its surroundings. From within the golden token, in Lux's hands, it could tell that an old friend resided. A minute later, the giant worm roared one last time before burrowing in the ground. It had taken the opportunity to escape the dungeon the moment the dungeon core shattered, since its connection with the dungeon no longer bound it. Indus was finally able to break free from its prison and come to the outside world, like it did long ago, to destroy the ancient civilization. Alongside Kiaza, the beginner's zone was no place for it, so it decided to leave. Its instincts were telling it that if it stayed in the territory of Noria, something very bad would happen to it. When the tremors in the ground finally subsided, Lux was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. This particular dungeon expedition was truly too dangerous. If their timing had been wrong, Indus would have killed them. If Kiaza hadn't been kind, none of them would have survived the moment they entered the inner grotto. It was truly worthy of having an S-ranked difficulty rating, and Lux was thankful that it was finally over. He had received many rewards from this trip, and he really liked them all, especially the last 2 gifts that Kiaza had bestowed him. Just as the half-elf regained his composure, a clawed hand rested on his shoulders and held it in a firm grip. What happened back there? Cadmus asked. Lux turned around to look at the draconic kobold and saw the latter's complicated look across his face. The half-elf decided to tell the kobolds the truth about the dungeon. He naturally omitted the parts about the rewards he received from Kiaza, knowing that it might breed resentment between him and the kobolds. The last thing the half-elf wanted was for all the kobolds to turn against him while he was miles deep under the earth. Not to mention that there was still a rank 5 alpha monster holding his shoulder to keep him from moving. The dungeon reached the limit of its lifespan, Lux explained. So, the moment I finished talking with Kiaza, he kicked us out of the dungeon before it was destroyed. This token I have with me is a reward that he gave me for winning the battle against you guys. Lux showed them the golden dragon token in his hand. Since kobolds revered dragons, he hoped that it would be enough to calm all of them down and forget all of their grudges against him. Cadmus eyed the golden token that was the size of an adult man's fist. The draconic kobold could faintly feel the power of a dragon inside it, so he decided to believe Lux's story. Since it is a gift given to you by the Great One, you may keep it, Cadmus said. Rest assured, no kobold will take it from you. The kobolds behind Cadmus nodded their heads in agreement. Although they didn't like Lux, they had no choice but to admit that he had bested them fair and square. Suddenly, the hands holding Lux's shoulder trembled as Cadmus looked at him in shock. Why do you have the presence of a dragon? Cadmus couldn't believe it when he sensed the power of dragons inside Lux's body. Although it was very faint, it was impossible for him to mistake it for something else. The Kiaza bestowed upon me some dragon's blood, Lux answered as he scratched his head. He was so adamant that I have it, so I had no choice but to take it. The kobolds hissed at Lux, not because of anger, but out of jealousy. Every kobold wished to become a dragon, and treated it as the highest honor to become one. Now that Lux had acquired some dragon's blood, they had no choice but to let go of all of their grudges. No kobold would willingly raise its arms to hurt those who had dragon blood flowing in their veins, no matter how little it was. Cadmus sighed internally as he released the grip he had on Lux's shoulder. Originally, he planned to teach the half-elf a lesson in order to vent his frustration, but now that the other party had dragon's blood, he had no other choice but to recognize him as one of his comrades who shared the same roots. From this day onwards, all grudges between us are over, Cadmus declared as he reached his hand towards Lux in the form of a handshake. Would you like to be the friend of the Hazeback Kobold clan? Lux smiled as he took Cadmus' hand and shook twice. Gladly. A series of notifications then appeared in front of Lux, telling him about his current relationship with the Kobold clan, which made him sigh in relief. Plus 2,000 Hazeback Kobold clan reputation points. Hazeback Kobold clan reputation points, 2,000. Relationship, friends. The Hazeback Kobold clan will treat you as a friend from this day onwards. Interaction with the Hazeback Kobold clan is now possible. Cadmus will lend his aid to you once. Now that the kobolds no longer treated him as an enemy, he didn't need to worry about a certain rank 5 alpha monster ambushing him when he least expected it. After staying with the kobolds for a day to participate in the feast they threw to celebrate their newly founded friendship, Lux left the underground city in order to return to Leaf Village. He planned to tell his master, Randolph, as well as his grandma Annie, that he would be away from the village for several months, and the two shouldn't worry about him. After encountering the Indus worm and Kiaza, Lux decided to start the mythical missions in each village of the beginner's zone. That way, he would be able to complete the Faunus mythical regalia, while increasing his chances of winning against strong opponents in the upcoming tournament that would be held in Barbados Academy. As Lux journeyed towards Leaf Village on top of his mount, Jed, he checked the rewards he received from his latest expedition in his soul book. Hidden quest, A Touch of Dragons, completed. Difficulty rating, S. Quest location, Grotto of the Forbidden Guardian. Dungeon rating, C. Dungeon mode, Hell mode, A Touch of Dragons. Chain quest, deep within the earth, an ancient city was unearthed. Find out the secret that was buried along its demise within the Grotto of the Forbidden Guardian. Bonus rewards will be calculated depending on the choices you make in this mission. Rewards: Potion of Intelligence. This potion adds plus 50 permanent intelligence points to the one who consumes it. You can only consume one potion of intelligence in your lifetime. Rank 2 skill book of your choice. You will be able to choose any skill that is rank 2 or below from the Grotto of the Forbidden Guardian. 1,000 gold coins, plus 2,000 Hazeback Kobold Clan reputation points. Boots of Teleportation, Argonaut Beast Core, Crystal Dragon, Golden Dragon Token. Bonus rewards: Vial of Dragon's Blood, Dragon War Art Skillbook. Grotto Survivor reward, received in the Outer Grotto. 100 rank 2 beast cores, 20 rank 3 beast cores, 2 rank 4 beast core. Not bad, Lux thought as he skimmed through the things he gained after finishing the S-ranked quest. He was quite excited about trying out the Dragon War Art that was currently inside his head, but he held back against the temptation since he still needed to return to the Leaf Village first to make sure that the dwarves, who cared about him, knew that he was safe. His plan was to stay in Leaf Village for one more day before traveling to Lindo Village, where the Shield of the Faunus battle regalia was said to be hidden. Completing a mythical quest wasn't an easy thing to do, but Lux was determined to carry it through until the end. He didn't know how long the entire quest line would take to finish, but he had no intention of leaving the beginner's zone until he had completed it. Sure, he could probably get some mythical or even legendary armor sets from his grandma Vera, but Lux wanted to become independent. He wanted to advance in Elysium with his own power, so he decided that he would no longer ask his grandma for equipment that could help him get stronger. Also, he wanted to prove to Iris' father, Alexander, that he was no longer the useless and weak half-elf that he knew in the past. More than anything else, Lux wanted to show everyone, whether they had ridiculed or supported him in the past, what he managed to achieve using his own strength. Now, let's see what this rank 2 skill book has to offer. Lux clicked the skill book inside his soul book, and it materialized in front of him. Here goes nothing. Lux didn't have any high expectations as he activated the skill book, but he was amazed after he saw over 50 skills that appeared in front of him. Skills available in the Grotto of the Forbidden Guardian: Acid Spray, Earth Tremor, Entangle, Heroism, Earth Bind, Detect Traps, Summon Creature, Detect Invisible, Ancient Weapon with Fire, Armor of Death, Jade Body, Beam of Frost, Acid Spray, Whip of Thorns, Death Ray. The half-elf almost got a headache after reading them all. The problem was, he could only choose one among the many skills available to him. Lux didn't plan to choose the summon creatures since he already had many summons. Adding a few more wouldn't make a difference. What he needed was something that would increase his strength, as well as the strength of his minions, making them more powerful. After almost half an hour of thinking, the half-elf finally decided to choose the skill Jade Body. This skill boosted the target's defense by giving it an additional plus 200 to defense, which would make his summoned creatures more sturdy. Although an additional 200 points to defense might seem lackluster, it was still an amazing rank 2 skill, and Lux was looking forward to how its evolved version would be. After taking a few deep breaths, Lux chose the Jade Body skill. Immediately several rows of text appeared in front of him, telling him that his chosen skill had been automatically upgraded. You have learned the skill, Jade Body. Less than skill evolution, X, detected a new skill greater than. Since the skill, Jade Body, is not learned from a beast core, it will automatically be upgraded to improved Jade Body. Mass buff, improved Jade Body. Mana, 10. This skill adds plus 300 to defense. This skill will automatically buff all allied units present in the battlefield. Skill duration, 30 minutes. Skill cooldown, 10 minutes. Lux did a fist pump after seeing the improved version of the skill. Not only did it give an additional plus 300 to defense, It was also a mass buff, which saved the half-elf the trouble of manually buffing all of his units one at a time. Very nice, Lux said with a smile. With this buff, only alpha monsters or monsters with similar strength could threaten his skeleton summons in the beginner's zone due to how sturdy they were. One could even say that Lux's minions were on their way to becoming overgeared and overbuffed in the territory of Noria, making them the local bullies in town. Right now, only rank 3 creatures and above could potentially break past his skeleton's defenses, making Lux very happy. As long as I don't meet someone as strong as Cadmus and the Indus Deathworm, I shouldn't have any problem finishing the mythical quests from each village, Lux mused as he closed his soul book. My body physique also got an upgrade. Lux was confident that with his current strength, he could easily beat all the alpha monsters in the territory of Noria, with the exceptions of its field bosses, who still posed a significant threat to his current rank and forces. Once I gather the Faunus battle regalia and master the dragon war art, will I be able to beat them? Lux thought as the familiar scenery of Leaf Village appeared in the distance. I'll just cross that bridge when I get there. Randolph sipped some tea as he gazed in the distance. From time to time, he would casually pick up a cookie from the plate beside him and eat it while thinking of his disciple, who had disappeared for several months. Lux had told him in advance that he planned to go sightseeing in the territory of Noria, but the blacksmith of Leaf Village didn't buy his bullish asterisk tea. I'd greatly appreciate it if you don't scowl while eating in front of my shop, Grandma Annie said in a reprimanding voice. You are scaring away my customers. Randolph gave the old lady dwarf a sidelong glance before snorting. I am not scowling, Randolph replied. I was born with this face. Grandma Annie chuckled as she sat on the chair beside the dwarf smith, who was always looking in the direction of the village's entrance. It has been almost 6 months since Lux left the village, Grandma Annie said softly. Many foreigners have already left for the other towns after they stepped into the apostle rank, but that half-elf was still staying in the land of Noria. Sometimes, I wonder if there is something that is holding him back. Are you perhaps blackmailing him to prevent him from leaving this place? Randolph shot an angry glare towards the old woman, who had been one of his party members when he was still young and foolish. Together with Ceedwin and a few others, they traveled the kingdom of Gwillivan, facing dangers together while watching each other's backs. Even if Annie and him bickered from time to time, it was at most a playful banter and nothing too serious. I'm not blackmailing him, okay? Randolph answered. Even I feel that his stay in the territory of Noria is long overdue. He had already mastered the basics of smithing, and it is now time for him to set out on a new journey to see the world. When I see him next time, I'll make sure to clobber him and talk some sense into him. Violence is never the answer. How many times should I tell you that? And I'm sick and tired of you telling me to stop being violent. Grandma Annie chuckled as she bit into one of the cookies she baked earlier. For her, Lux was a fascinating young man. She often wondered if fate had brought him to Leaf Village in order to bring a change that the local populace had never seen before. Well, if you see Lux, tell him that he should pack up and leave, Grandma Annie said softly. Although I will miss him, the territory of Noria is too small a place for him to spread his wings. I will do that even if you don't tell me to, Randolph replied grumpily. The old smith was about to pick up another cookie when the bells located on the watchtower near the entrances of the village started to make noise. Grandma Annie and him exchanged a glance of surprise before the two of them summoned their weapons. The guards of the village were already shouting and telling everyone, including the foreigners, to evacuate to the underground shelters. The adults herded the children to a safe place as they prepared themselves to fight. We will stay and fight, a dwarf boy said as he held his mace with both hands. We can beat them. Yes, his party members shouted in unison as they prepared to help the villagers to fight the monster outbreak that was upon them. Ah, you dumb kids, what do you think you are doing? Ceedwin, the village head of Leaf Village, grabbed the dwarf boy and pulled him back. Go to the shelters. Even if you are a foreigner, you are no match against what we are about to face. No, we can beat them, The dwarf boy struggled as he tried to break free from Sidwen's grip. I have come to Elysium to fight, and not to hide in some underground shelter. Foolish boy. Sidwen smacked the boy's head, making the dwarf boy cry out in pain. You've just arrived here for a week, and you're already mumbling a bunch of crap. Go to the shelter now, or I'll kick you until you get there. Wah-ah, mommy, this old man is bullying me. The dwarf boy cried out as Sidwen kicked his bum several times to make him go away. The boy's party members could only watch helplessly. In the end, they followed their leader to the shelter, but they had only taken a dozen steps when a giant mantis descended from the sky and eyed the dwarf children as if they were food. Red-eyed terror mantis, Sidwen said as he stood between the dwarf children and the alpha monster. So, it's an insect monster outbreak this time. However, before Sidwen could even chant a spell to fight against the alpha monster, he heard a scream behind him. As the village head turned his head to where the scream came from, he saw several berserk horned rabbits charging towards the children, who were quickly put under the protection of the adults. Not far from the rabbits was the alpha monster, Carbuncle, which made Sidwen's expression turn grim. You brats, run in that direction. Now, Sidwen ordered as he cast a barrier around him and the dwarf children. He quickly herded them to the narrow passages between the dwarves' houses. The houses were built this way in order to serve as a strategic path for escape in case of pursuit by big monsters who couldn't fit through narrow places. As soon as they emerged on the other side of the street, he saw a scene that made him wonder if he was just seeing things. By the gods! Undead monsters in broad daylight. Sidwen cried out in shock when he saw several skeletons, ghouls, and draggers in the surroundings. Just as the village head thought that things couldn't get any worse, he saw a 3-meter-tall monster in the distance. It had a long tail coming from its backside which was similar to that of a scorpion, which made Sidwen slap himself to make sure that he wasn't dreaming. Ghoul beast! Sidwen cried out in alarm. Just what in the world is happening? Usually during monster outbreaks, Leaf Village would just be fighting against one type of enemy. It would either be an insect outbreak, undead outbreak, or a beast outbreak. But right now, all three outbreaks were happening at the same time, which made the old dwarf wonder if he was just having a nightmare. Just as Sidwen was wondering on how to get out of this desperate situation, he heard a loud and dominating wolf howl that made all the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. The village head then looked in the distance and saw a 5-meter-tall monster, whom he had only seen once in his life. The first time he saw the monster, he, along with Grandma Annie and Randolph, almost lost their lives. Now, he was seeing the same creature again, and this time, Sidwen had a feeling that he wouldn't be able to survive this second encounter against a creature whose strength was only a step away from the Daimo's rank. Mutated Thunder Wolf King. Sidwen's face had been drained of all color when he looked at the monster, who could single-handedly destroy the entirety of Leaf Village. The foreigner dwarves that he had saved earlier all started crying out of fear of the strong monsters that had appeared out of nowhere. They thought that they were just going to fight normal monsters, so they weren't too afraid earlier. However, right now, they wish they had listened to Sidwen right away and hid themselves in the underground shelters. If they did, perhaps they would have been able to live another day. But they no longer had this opportunity. It was far too late. May the gods have mercy on us all, Sidwen muttered as he tried his best to keep standing, despite the fact that his legs felt like they could collapse under him at any given moment. Sidwen knew that even before this day was over, there would no longer be a Leaf Village in the territory of Noria. Although the bells of the village continued to ring endlessly, telling the stronghold of Noria to send reinforcements, Sidwen knew that it would be of no use. Perhaps not even their corpses would be spared, leaving nothing behind but a faint memory that their village had once existed in the world of Elysium. Even if by some great miracle, the reinforcements arrived in time, they would still have to pay a hefty price to win against an opponent this powerful. Only by sacrificing hundreds of lives could the mutated Thunder Wolf King be slain. Sidwen had no idea if the riders of Noria would be willing to pay such a price just to kill the mutated Thunder Wolf King. The monster was leagues above the rank of their strongest
Thank you for
fighter.
watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.